Do you have any questions for the panel now? Do you have a question? Is it a good one? Do you not have a question? Is that a problem? Well, watch this video and find out. Hi, I'm Anthony. I'm the Career Doctor. I make videos for other doctors to help with career challenges, things like the job application process. At the moment, we're doing a series of videos about interviewing for medical jobs. If you're finding the content useful, I'd really encourage you to subscribe and turn on notifications. Helps you to find out when the next weekly video comes out. Would also encourage you to join our Trainee Doctor Career Support Group on Facebook, where you can get more information about job challenges and also feedback to us some ideas for the sort of content that you'd like to see. So at the end of your interview process, particularly if it's just a panel interview, there's likely to be a question at the end which goes along some sort of variety of, thank you, that's the end of the interview. Do you have any questions for the panel? A lot of trainees are worried about this question. The biggest fear that I hear is that you feel like it's necessary to ask a question because you've been given the opportunity. So we're going to talk a little bit about how you handle this particular part of the interview process. Okay, some key points here. I guess firstly, it should probably go without saying, but I think it's worth emphasizing that this actual question at the end of the interview panel is not normally assessed. You're not normally giving a rating. It's not formally taken into account. That being said, I suppose it can add a little bit more towards your candidacy, particularly perhaps how passionate you come across in relation to the position. Or if you ask a silly question, it might sort of bring you down a notch or two in people's eyes in terms of the general overall rating that they have for you. But it's not usually a question that's assessed, so it is actually okay not to ask a question. And that's going to be my next point, and this is probably going to be a fairly short video because I think in most cases, if you know the job well and you know the panel well, let's say you've actually been working in the same hospital, you're essentially applying for a promotion within the health service in a role that you're reasonably comfortable with. We've had lots of opportunity to have casual conversations with some of the people involved in the program, know people on the panel well, you know, you've gone to the information night, etc., etc. You're actually pretty well informed about the job and you're unlikely to actually have another question that's not had an opportunity to be answered so far. So in those circumstances, I just recommend you not asking a question, just say no. And we'll talk about how you go about saying no in a minute. The other thing that's worth pointing out here is the last question, the do you have any questions for the panel question, is a last opportunity for you to go back and say some things about some of the other answers that you made. So for example, if you got thrown by a particular question and you felt you didn't answer it very well, but something's come to you in the meantime, this is an opportunity to go back and address that. So let's say that it was a difficult clinical scenario and you went through all the things that you do in those sort of situations, but you forgot to talk about involving your consultant. Well, here's your chance to say, oh, and of course, I just wanted to add to that question number 3. I just wanted to talk about the fact that I would involve my consultant at this particular stage in the case. So it is an opportunity to make a comment rather than ask a question. Bear that in mind as well. Another key point is avoid any questions which might come across as ambivalent or poorly prepared, or maybe even in a negotiation phase with the panel. So anything that makes you kind of come across as non-committal. And we'll talk about some examples of those in a minute as well. So how do you go about saying no thanks? Well, here's sort of a recommended set of words that I'd sort of say would fit most situations. You can say something along the lines of, thanks, but I think I've already had an opportunity before the interview to ask the questions that I needed to ask. And then you finish with a compliment. It's been a pleasure talking to you all. Perhaps also add, I look forward to hearing the outcome of the interview. So yeah, thank them. Say, look, I've had lots of opportunities to ask questions already. You've been really helpful, so I don't feel the need at this point to ask another question. And they'll respect that, and by you sort of saying that you've already asked heaps of questions, you're showing that you've displayed passion beforehand rather than having to ask a question to show how passionate you are right at the end. As I said, there's some types of questions you should definitely avoid, and these are ones that might sort of put the panel off because it seems like you might want to be negotiating with them about the job or concerned about certain aspects of the job that might be a requirement of the job. So avoid questions about pay rates. You'd be surprised, but there are certain ways of interpreting pays from one position to other in certain states of Australia, etc. So this is probably not the moment to sort of ask how much you're going to get paid for the position. Once they offer you the position, maybe that's the time to negotiate around it. And secondly, questions about things like going on rural secondments or doing overtime, that sort of stuff. Again, there are other times to ask questions about that and find out about that and express concern. The interview when they're selecting you is not the time to put doubt in people's mind that you're not committed to some of those things. So there's some examples of things that you should avoid in terms of questions. What about questions that might be okay to ask? Look, I think these are situations where you haven't really had that opportunity to ask questions beforehand, and maybe where the information's not as been forthcoming. And I guess these days, a lot of the times these programs are now advertising on the web with additional information, so actually you can sort of find out a lot of this stuff by searching online, etc. But you might not have had an opportunity to ask certain things. Things like, when will you find out the result? Maybe that's not clear. That's a reasonably safe question to ask, and they should be able to give you some sort of answer to that question, at least a time frame. But don't ask that question if you've been told already. Similarly, it's okay to ask for feedback. Just bear in mind that you're probably not going to get it on the spot, and don't be disappointed if you don't receive any on the spot or later, because often we're interviewing lots of candidates, we're making comments and marks, etc., but it's really hard to remember who said what and try and give really good feedback to individuals at the end of the process. Sometimes we can kind of see themes in how candidates approach questions better or not, and we can give a little bit of feedback, but it's okay to ask for it. As I say, don't be disappointed if you don't receive some at the end of the day. So that's how to answer the question about having any questions in the interview. As I say, my strong recommendation is, particularly if you're an internal candidate for the role, don't ask a question. Just say thank you, you've had the opportunity to have your questions answered already. So I hope you're getting lots of help out of these videos about the interview process. Please subscribe, turn on notifications, leave a like, that helps us out as well. If you've got a comment about what I've said, perhaps you don't agree with me, perhaps you think it's important to ask a question in the interview, leave one below and let's engage in a discussion. And we'll see you next time.